Hi, I'm Peter Gyves, Jesuit priest and director of A Faith That Does Justice. Our Lenten season is upon us, and I'd like to take a moment to offer a brief reflection about the Lenten season itself, some of its historical, theological underpinnings, and also what we might do, what we might consider in terms of how we might prepare for the Easter event that follows Lent. So first, the Lenten season traditionally has been from Ash Wednesday. In the Catholic tradition, it goes till the Last Supper meal of Holy Thursday evening. It's followed then by our Friday reliving or re-experiencing the passion and death of Jesus, and then the expectant waiting till Sunday, Easter Sunday, when we can live out of the joy, the liberation of the risen Christ in our own lives, so that we might continue the unfinished work of the kingdom of God, a world where Jesus really preached and incarnated in this world love, compassion, and a sense of justice for all God's people. So second, let me just mention too that the underpinnings of our Easter event and Lent really are theological and historical. From a theological perspective, after the death of Jesus and what Christians claim his resurrection, there were different ways of explaining what was going on. One was the atonement theory, another one was ransom theory, another one was satisfaction. And all of these really get to the idea that human sinfulness was so great and God so offended that human beings themselves could not undo the sinfulness that they were in. And it took God's Son, Jesus, to really undo this, and through the free offering of his own life, really established right relationship, righteousness with God again, and restored covenant relationship where God and humanity were in sync, and God's salvific offer was back really in play and being offered to all God's people. From a historical perspective, it's a very different story. These theological explanations came after the resurrection. The historical explanation is really that Jesus died not because of any preordained plan of God that he would give his life. Really, what Jesus was asked of God was really to do God's will. And it was in doing God's will that Jesus became confronted with human sinfulness. And human sinfulness in the end rose up to kill him, to wipe him out, the work he was doing, the work of the kingdom of God, because of the self-interest, the greed of human beings, the sinfulness from which they were unwilling to change and transform their lives. We believe with the resurrection event that God took the cross upon which Jesus died and transformed it into a liberative experience, raising Jesus from the dead, where God's love overcame sinfulness and God's desire for life in its fullness overcame death. So that's really more the underpinnings of what's going on during our Lenten season. We really live our Lenten season out of several practices. It's often referred to as a time of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. From a prayer's perspective, what we'll find out in the readings during Lent is that from the Jewish scriptures, the suffering servant of Isaiah is really invoked over and over again. The Jewish people were really coming back from Babylon. Isaiah really saw them as the suffering people, that their suffering was double what they had done, and that Isaiah interpreted it as they were taking on the suffering of this world, to become a light to this world, to show them what God was really asking of humanity and how we were meant to live. The Christian tradition in the aftermath of the resurrection really took the suffering servant to be Jesus as the one who took on this suffering within the world so that others could learn from it, discover what it means to truly be a human being and to act as God would have us act in this world. So from a prayer perspective, we will see that. We'll also see from the Christian scriptures, the Gospels, really the passion and death of Jesus, how you can see over time what is happening as Jesus is running into conflict with Jewish authorities as well as the Roman authorities, who he is threatening because of his really demand for transformation, that we live a different way as new human beings in a new world order. Human sinfulness will coalesce. It will rise up against him. It will lead to his passion, death, his crucifixion. And then ultimately, as Christians, we believe that God undid this. God undid this, says, you can kill him, but I will raise him from the dead because of how he has lived. and how he has taught people to be what God really desires us to be. From a fasting perspective, we're often asked to give things up during Lent. Some people give up desserts. Some people give up something that they really enjoy during the 40 days of Lent. And this is very helpful. Another aspect to think about during Lent is not only giving something up, but taking something on, doing something that is of benefit to others, moving beyond our self-interest to help others. For some people, that may be being kind to people that are having difficult or in difficult situations. It may be working in a soup kitchen once during Lent or on Saturdays during Lent to really move beyond ourselves and our own self-interest, to be present to God's love, compassion, and justice for other people, especially people who are hurting. And then finally, there's almsgiving. Traditionally, it has been offered through giving monetary help to either the church that you're part of or helping organizations that you're really interested in promoting, those types of things. But there's another way of doing almsgiving, and it's giving time. It's giving our time on behalf of people in need, and that can happen through a number of different ways, either volunteering through a church organization or through a civic organization, a nonprofit organization that is really reaching out to help people in need. And so finally, I would just mention that as we go forward in Lent, to really be very mindful of the fact that what we're really trying to do is to prepare ourselves to live in a deeper sense of relationship with God, so that as disciples of Jesus, if we claim that as Christians, it really has meaning, that we really go forth into this world living his love, his sense of compassion at the presence of human suffering, and his desire that there be justice in this world, and not just for some, the privileged, but for everyone, and especially the people in need of God's helping hand. So there's some food for thought. I hope it's helpful to you during this Lenten season. I look forward to continuing to talk with you during this time, as well as looking forward to our Easter season, when we can live as Easter people, living God's joy, God's sense of liberation, and God's offer of salvation to all people. So thank you very much. Be safe and be well during this time of the COVID pandemic.